Hello and welcome back to the Eyes Up Life podcast with me, Ben Granis, your host, who is so grateful that you're here. We are here for episode 6. Can you believe that? That means we're already 3 months into this and have plenty of good stuff to go. Today, I'm excited about our conversation that I'm sharing with you, my conversation with Steve Matthes, who is a media personality, does radio shows, lots of good media content production in the power sports world. So a bit of a pivot. This is the first person that you've heard in this sort of media world. So I think you'll enjoy our conversation. We spoke remotely over Zoom, so the audio is a little less great than the delightfully crisp audio you should hopefully be used to by now if you're a devoted listener to the show. But you'll definitely be able to hear what he has to say. And he's based in Las Vegas, but travels all over the country to cover different events and talk with a lot of the people actually that I interviewed. So that's kind of cool. If you're new to the show or Eyes Up generally, I'll give you a little bit of background before we jump into my conversation with Steve. Eyes Up is a mission to end distracted driving, to promote digital wellness, and encourage young people in particular to pursue their dreams by doing what they love and putting the phone down and embracing life with fewer distractions in a very distracted world. In August 2021, I started out on a 7,000-mile bike ride around the U.S. to raise awareness for this cause, fundraise for a nonprofit called Text Less, Live More. And I wrapped up that ride in September of this past year, 2022. And now I am spreading the message through conversations with people like Steve and through presentations, assemblies, workshops, all of that good stuff at schools and organizations around the U.S. So if you know someone who might benefit from a conversation about programs in the Eyes Up world, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to have that conversation and see what we might be able to do, because everyone can benefit from this message, and my experience is not entirely unique. However, I do truly believe in this mission, and my experience on the bike and the stories from the trip are quite powerful and link all throughout the message of look, listen, and live. So after I wrapped up that ride in September, I then headed out on a road trip around the U.S. to interview 21 athletes and affiliates of Maxxis tires. If you're not familiar with Maxxis, go to maxxistires.com. Check them out. If you have a wheeled vehicle of any kind, from a bike to a truck, they make fantastic tires for that, and you will not be disappointed with their products. Anyways, they are fantastic and partnered with me to connect me with these folks that you're going to hear from, like Steve, and I'm really pleased with how the products turned out. So we have a video every other Wednesday come out, and then the full conversation, which you're listening to now, on Friday. So make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for all of this content that's coming out over the rest of the year. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Steve Matthes, the host of Pulp MX show, covering all of the goings-on in the power sports motocross world. Enjoy! Well, thank you for taking the time to chat today. I'm glad it worked out. So you're heading out tomorrow?
Tonight. I'm heading out this afternoon, yeah. Driving to California to go race a vet race.
Cool. And this is motocross?
Yep.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about your background, like what you do professionally, and how much of a role racing has played in your life.
Yeah, what I do for a living is I'm a journalist. I use those quotes loosely, but I work in the media for motocross and supercross, and I cover the sport indoors and out. There's about 29 races a year. I fly to most of them and report on them. I do podcasts, written stories, written interviews. I do about 9 hours a week of podcasts on the sport, uh, coming at it from various angles. So yeah, that's kind of what I do for a living. And racing itself has been in my life the whole time. I mean, I started racing when I was 7 or 8 years old, and realized, like many people, that I wasn't good enough to make money from it. When I'm in my early 20s, I switched to being a mechanic for a race team for about 12 years, and then got out of that and started being a media guy, covering it from all angles in the media end of things. So yeah, it's been a journey, and racing motocross has been part of my life forever.
Right on. Did I see that you work for Racer X?
I do. I'm a freelance journalist, so I'm free to work for a number of publications. But my biggest client is Racer X.
Okay, so you know Jason Wygant then?
I do.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. He was my first stop on this trip.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it was cool to chat with him. How
Yeah.
closely do you guys work together?
Yeah. Real closely. We probably text every day,
Cool.
and we work on content plans, and I have him as a guest sometimes on some of my shows. And so yeah, we're good friends, and we work together closely.
What was the early part of your life like? Like how did you get exposed to racing and motocross and that whole world?
Through my dad, I'm from Canada. Grew up there, right in Manitoba, which is in the center of Canada. And my dad was into motocross. I think he rode street bikes, and then he rode dirt bikes. And I have an older brother who's 3 years older than I am. And obviously, he started my brother riding dirt bikes. And like any younger brother, you always want to, belong or whatever, right? And so I started riding dirt bikes with my dad at 5 or 6 years old, started racing at 7 or 8 years old. My brother was 3 years older than me. He was racing as well. It was a whole family atmosphere for a while, whole family going to the races. And then at some point, my brother quit probably when he was 17. So that makes me 14. And then my dad and I continued on racing for another 10 years or so. I enjoyed it more than my brother. My brother got burned out a little bit. But yeah, that's how we began the love affair of dirt bikes, really. Not so much like street bikes or road racing. I have very limited experience with that. It's just been in the dirt, and it's been supercross or motocross.
So do you, because I know a lot of motocross racers use mountain bikes to train. Is that something that you did or ever got into?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. When I was younger and more serious about becoming a professional dirt bike racer, I was into mountain bikes. I had a mountain bike without suspension on it in the early 90s, and rode the hell out of it. Really enjoyed it, and then kind of got out of it when I stopped needing it to train, and then I became a mechanic in the U.S. Down here in America in 1996. And really, I didn't mountain bike at all for a long time. I probably got back into it in like 2003, 2004. I put on a lot of weight, eating really shitty and not exercising at all for many years, and got rediscovered my love of mountain biking 4 or 5 years ago. And now I do it a ton. I have an e-bike and a regular bike, and I'm probably out in the off season when I'm not traveling. I'm out 4 or 5 times a week.
and what's your off season like? Are we entering it now? Just
We are.
about.
Yeah, we are. Off season goes until probably early September, and then it goes until January, the first weekend in January. So we are about a month into the off season. There's still some races going on. I got to go to Paris next weekend, Paris, France, and I got back from the UK about 3 weeks ago. And there's some different events here and there in the off season, but yes, basically the week to week travel starts beginning of January, ends beginning of September.
So you must know Alex Ray.
I do know Alex Ray.
Because
Yes,
I think he's going to the event in Paris
he
next
is.
weekend.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll
cool.
see him there, and he's a good buddy of mine, and I have him on my shows, and my listener base really likes him. He's a genuine good dude. He's had some struggles lately, and he's pretty honest and open about his struggles, and I think people can relate to that.
Right. Yeah, no, it's always helpful when people are just transparent and not sugarcoating that
Yep.
stuff, especially
Yeah.
if you're broadcasting it. Tell me
Yep.
about all of the race jerseys behind you. Where did all those come from?
But yeah, they're all for our Monday night Pulp show that we do. It's about a 5 hour show, and it's on live on YouTube and Facebook, and we We do videos from it, and so I wanted to decorate the studio a little bit, and that's all just jerseys from riders that I know, memorable jerseys, personally given to me from different guys, and they all have sort of a different history and a different year. I kind of just I change them up every now and then, but I took a little cornucopia of everybody that I'm kind of buddies with or that has had a good career in the sport.
Right. Well, it serves as a good background for sure.
It
For
does. Yes.
tell me about your connection with Maxxis, because I imagine you're not maybe directly connected with them, but it sounds like you do a lot of work with Maxxis athletes.
Yeah, I do actually. And it's funny, one of the race teams I worked on in 2002 used Maxxis tires. And obviously, Chris and everybody from Maxxis have changed over since then. But I find it funny that we were maybe the only team in '02 using Maxxis tires, and we had some really good results on the team from different riders on Maxxis tires. And then, as quickly as Maxxis came into the sport, they left. And then, smash cut. I don't know, maybe 17 years later, let's say, Chris from Maxxis reaches out to me, and he's a listener of the shows and he's a fan of what we do, and he's like, "Is there an opportunity to partner up?" And so we have, and it's been a real good relationship because Maxxis mountain bike tires are tremendous, as you know, and so I have them on my mountain bike tires, or I have them on my mountain bikes, and then their dirt bike tires were relaunched with a sort of a new purpose and a new innovations maybe 3-4 years ago, which appeals to my demographic of people that I do my shows with. And then, obviously the people that have dirt bikes have trucks. Maxxis is very big in trucks. The UTV market has exploded in the last 3-4 years. Maxxis is one of the leaders in there. So it really ties in nicely to our universe, whether it's dirt bikes, mountain bikes, trucks, or UTVs. Maxxis makes a great tire for it. And so I promote it and talk about it and everything else. I just find it funny that I had my team that I was on in '02 delivered some real good success to Maxxis way back in the day, and I never really thought I would partner back up with them, but here we are.
Yeah, because it sounds like they pulled out of the sport shortly after that, right?
Yeah, it was. I want to say it was one and done, just that '02 year, maybe, or maybe '03 the next year. But yeah, they were kind of in and out in a way.
So I shared a little bit of background with you about what I'm doing and what this project's about, and the focus is on distracted driving and digital wellness, and just aiming to raise awareness for both of those things and just keep the conversation going and hopefully expand it to a broader audience. So I'm curious to hear what your experience is, as someone who travels all the time for work, and just in your everyday life, what your experiences with distracted driving, both personally and stuff you've observed while out on the road.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I told my wife I was doing this, and she was like, "Well, you're a prime candidate for distracted driving. I need to be better. I need to get better. I do it. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people do it, and I've been getting texts from people in the last 6 months or so that say, "Hey, I'm currently driving and don't have access to my phone, and I'll get back to you." I feel like that's catching on a little more, and I need to get on that. Obviously, traveling, you land in these cities, the first thing you pull out is your phone to get your Apple Maps to know where you're going from your rental car. So, that is a bit of distracted driving, but on the other hand, it's kind of needed, right? But I'm as guilty as the next guy of checking a text or texting or whatever at a stoplight, and then you keep it going. Yeah, it's definitely something that's out there, and it's caused a lot of accidents. We're seeing more public awareness trying to stop it. And again, those auto texts back, I've seen more of those in the last 6 months or so than I have ever before, and I think I probably need to sign up for that.
Do you want to do it right now?
How do we do it?
So you have your phone with you?
Yeah.
So is it an iPhone?
Yep.
So you'll go into settings.
Yep.
And then if you scroll down, there's a focus button. You click that, and then
do not disturb.
Well, do not disturb. You actually want to hit the plus button in the upper right, and then there should be one that says driving.
Oh yeah, driving. Got it. Silence note. Yeah, next. It says next.
Yeah.
Allowed people for notifications.
So if you need to get notifications from like family or something, that would be where you do that.
Okay, which I just did my wife.
Yeah.
You know, turn driving on automatically.
Yep. So if you
Okay.
have CarPlay in your car, or
Yep.
you can have that turn on when you turn on CarPlay, or you plug in your phone, and then there's also the if you connect to Bluetooth option.
Okay. I did it.
Sweet. Well, thanks for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to. I mean, again, like it's nothing. Almost everything can wait, right? Well, yeah, 98% of the texts and things that you get can wait.
Yeah, I'm so that's a good segue. I so when I was talking to Jason, we were talking about how his in his line of work especially, there's so many things, especially with the remote work environment. There's a need to respond to people quickly because a lot of like
Y-
stories and posts kind of hinge on one person's kind of like okay on certain things, or just kind of a
Mm-hmm.
quick exchange. And he said that that's one of the biggest distractions for him when he's on the road. So I'm curious if that's
Same.
true
Yeah.
for you. And
Yeah.
so like none like it's really those things are really important for your work, of course. But when you compare it to the risks of what happens when you're driving distracted, it's obviously, like you said, it can wait. What's what's the what's the solution there for you guys on the road? Like, if it's just you in the car, you can't respond to someone while you're driving without being
Yeah.
distracted. So what do you do?
Yeah. I absolutely. If there is something that needs to be answered and it's a little bit of a longer answer, I will hand my phone to my wife and say, "Hey, tell this person this and this and this." But yeah, she's not always there with me, right? What is the solution to that? I think everything can wait. I mean, you are stopped at a stoplight, or you are stopped enough where you can apply yes, no, wait, something short, something sweet that you can reply to and get off your phone ASAP. And if it's something longer than that, then, I don't think we talk enough on our phones. And, heads up driving while you're talking through Bluetooth or whatever is something that you can do as well to help ease the burden. But yeah, most things can just wait. And if not, it can get replied with a yes, no at a stoplight.
Yeah, and so the stoplight's an interesting one because most states now have hands-free driving laws where you can't have your phone in your
Mm-hmm.
hand, and that it actually applies to stoplights, and that's something that I personally just have like it's kind of confusing because I get it, you're in the car, but how do you tell someone that that's still distracted driving and get them to actually
Mm-hmm.
follow that? Because I hear you, like especially if it's a long stoplight, you feel compelled to use that time to get something done, and it's still technically against the law. And so I don't know if you have any response to that.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. If it is, it is right. You shouldn't be doing it. But yeah, I feel like, especially since COVID, everyone's doing business remotely, and there isn't the need to be in these cubicles anymore. And so we got to come up with a better solution, maybe than that. But on the other hand, yeah, like things need to be answered, right? And just like with Wygant, what Jason was saying is sometimes it's just a simple yes, no, go. And you're in the middle of the day and technically you're working and people are waiting on an answer or a reply. So yeah, what is the solution? Pulling over, I guess, and doing it that way.
How would you like? It seems like you have a good understanding of the risks of distracted driving. What would you say to the average American who's just as vulnerable to the distractions on their phone, to help them understand how big the risks of what they're doing are and try to
Yeah,
get through
I
them?
mean, I just like I was saying earlier, I think everything can basically wait, right? When it comes to distracted driving, what outside of a life-threatening emergency text or call or something, what would think back to the 1980s or 90s before we had cell phones, and I'm old enough, unfortunately, to know that. You just drove, and whatever was going on at your office or at your house just still went on. Nothing happened. Nobody had a major emergency. So if you think about it, we all survived without cell phones and without instant replies and everything else. And I just think everything can wait. And yes, it is convenient nowadays with everything in your hand of your phone, but really it can wait.
What's been the biggest distraction for you from your phone while you're driving that would make you most likely to pick up your phone?
Oh, just a text. Yeah, just any sort of text. I'm not browsing the internet or, doing anything like that. It's more just checking email or checking a text. Now, I did change the email settings on my phone to only grab the emails when I requested instead of just coming in automatically. And I feel like that helped a little bit, where I wasn't, I had to actually physically grab them instead of just coming in and hearing that ding. So yeah, emails and texts.
Well, yeah, the notification thing is an interesting one too because I wonder if requiring it or it requiring you to check it yourself, do you find yourself opening mail a lot?
No, I don't think so. But mostly because when I open mail, it means there's work or there's things that I need to think about and do. So like on a mountain bike ride, I won't check the mail because I don't want to be bothered. And same with the drive. A lot of times I won't check the email because I know that there's just chances are there will be things that need my attention. So that part I'm pretty good about. Um, but the texting, you can't stop people from texting you and showing up. Well, now you can. Now I just set that on my phone. So
Right. Talk to me about your use of social media for work and promotion, and how it kind of how you balance it with your personal life.
yeah, it's really tough nowadays, right? I'm an independent freelance journalist, so my social media is used to push out things to get clicks and get listens and get reads and all of that. It's not, some people just have social media for like, hey, it's a nice day and my dog just farted or whatever. And I need it to work. Like I need it to actually promote my business, right? And the more I get listens and the more I get reads, the more I get advertisers and so on and so forth. So it's really important for me. Social media is. I unfortunately wish it wasn't. I think if I didn't have my own work to promote, I would not be on social media because it is pretty toxic. It is pretty bad. And I don't know how, that's a whole other conversation for another day. So I do use social media to promote my stories and things like that. As far as social media and distracted driving, well, yeah, I don't feel like I'm really too bad on that because, if I use social media, I have to go and spend the time to find a link because I'm going to put a link in the post to click on, and I'm going to think about what I want to say to attract someone to click on that link. And so it's a little bit more of a bigger deal to post something on social for me, than just somebody who doesn't use it to promote themselves.
Well, you started talking about how it's toxic, and it is a whole separate conversation, and the especially for young people the introduction of social media at such a young age is a piece of this mission, which is to help people maintain a healthy balance with their phone use. Not never trying to eliminate it because it doesn't seem like a reality, or it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
just like an extreme thing to recommend or even push on someone. So I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are on the balance. Like how do you make intentional time in your life where you're putting your phone away, and what do you think about young people, from the youngest age of 7 or 8 being on
Yeah.
phones and social media?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I put it away on mountain bike rides. I have my phone on me, but I don't, really look at it. I don't check emails. I don't really use it for social. I may take a photo if I think something's cool to post later. But yeah, I mean, I'm old enough where, I didn't have it growing up, but I have nieces and I have friends and I'm around young motocross racers for a living every weekend. And it is absolutely insane the validation that a lot of people, I don't want to put the majority of it, but let's just say a lot of people, the validation that they need through social media that they're doing all right. Like I got a buddy's kid of mine, he's 16, and he's just like, Dad, I got this many likes, and Dad, and you're just like, wow. And that's how they live, man. And it's brutal. And I think parents need to introduce it as late as they can to their children. But I don't want to be the old man on top yelling at the clouds at the top of the hill, right? There's certainly some good things about social media. You can keep in touch with your friends that don't live nearby you, and you can feel interaction with their lives. Like I know I see photos that my nieces up in Canada post, and I think that that's cool. I get to see what they're doing, right? There's some good about social media for sure, but man, there is some terrible things about it as well. I've seen it all. I've seen young girls sending out naked pictures of themselves unsolicited to some of these top racers, and you're just like, what is going on in this world where a girl think that's something that she needs to do to get attention, and likes and influencers, and there's people that pay money to go sit beside a fake private jet window to take a photo of them as if they were on a private jet, and I just want to smash my computer when I read these things or hear about these things or see these things, because it's terrible. But how do we stop it? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. It's that barn door is open, I think, and we just have to, as a parent, I think each individual parent has to speak to their children about social media and how it doesn't mean anything, and it's not the end all and be all. And you should monitor the comments on your kids' social, and you should look at their DMs and what they're sending and what they're doing, just like you would for any sort of thing. But unfortunately, I don't know if that's happening, Ben.
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned that you grew up before cell phones were a thing, and I wonder if you think that is well, does any of what the younger people are feeling, the need for validation and affirmation, does that resonate with you at all? Is that something that you feel or experience using social media?
No, I'm just older, more mature, right? I come from a different era. I certainly have people, I write columns and I say things that are controversial, and politically, I have put things out there that have caused, people to just really insult me and go after me. But I'm old enough and mature enough to be like, hey, these people don't matter. I don't know this person. They're faceless. They're anonymous. It doesn't matter. They're nobody I respect, opinion, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're younger, man, you've been there. I've been there. The whole world is crashing down on what somebody says about you or somebody thinks about you, and then that's just a part of being a teenager, of being a child. They're not mature enough to have the attitude that you or I may have. So I don't really know how you get around that, because that's as old as, I mean, the equivalent to that in the 1980s is this gossip going around at high school about you or something, right? And it was there, and it was crushing back in the 80s to hear things like that. Just was on a smaller scale. It's the same thing. It's just more widespread and on social media now.
Right. Yeah, and I wonder. You mentioned having parents delay the introduction of cell phones to their kids as long as possible.
Yeah.
I think that would make a big difference. I do wonder also the pressure aspect of it, because if you're the one person who doesn't have a cell phone, is that really helping the situation?
Yeah. Right. And you know what? And parents also want to get a hold of their child at times, right? Or track them, right? Some of them use the cell phones to track their kids and where they're at, and all of that. So again, like I was saying about social media, there's some good things about cell phones and some good things about social media. But I know as a parent, from what I've seen of friends' kids, I don't have kids myself. From what I've seen of my nieces and other friends' kids, I would be really careful, um, with what they're doing on it, and I would hold them back as long as I can.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting challenge. The just how it's shifted from a few people having cell phones to now everyone. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the average like American child nowadays gets their first phone at like 7 or 8. Is the
Is it really that young, huh?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
but like the balance of using social media and whatever, there's got to be a balance for kids. If find a compromise where if you need your child to have a phone, maybe you have restrictions or a review process, like you were saying, to see what they're doing. But then,
Yeah, something. I feel like I would be monitoring my kids' cell phones and usage and all of that if I was a parent, and I don't feel like I would get them a phone at 7 or 8. Jesus, that seems pretty young. But that's just me, and I guess other parents throw their kids in front of an iPad and watch them play video games for hours, and.
yeah, they all those things have their own challenges with them. Do you have kids yourself, Steve?
No, no kids. My wife and
Okay.
I don't have any.
So there's a study that was done recently that just kind of back to social media use that says the average American will spend 5 years of their life on social media over the course of their life,
Hmm.
which amounts to just a little bit over an hour a day, which isn't very much a day, but it adds up to a ton.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering what your reaction is to that, and how we can encourage in a positive way a healthy use of these tools.
That's a lot, 5 years, and that's probably if that's an hour a day. These kids are doing more than that, right? So now we're looking at 10 years of their lives on social media. That's crazy stat when you really think about it. And I think what you the job should be to tell the kids that that is what they're spending on it, and that's what it's going to equal. And what do you think of that? You know what I mean? I mean, some of my thoughts are that social media is still relatively new, and I've seen, let's say Twitter came around before Instagram and before Snap and all that. Twitter is maybe my preferred social media outlet, and I've seen, just in my time, I don't know, 100 people join Twitter, and then now they never go on Twitter anymore. And I wonder if social media will end up like that. The negatives will outweigh the cons. It'll always be there, and it'll always be something. I mean, these companies are worth billions of dollars, so it's there. But I do wonder if we're still relatively new to social media. We're a decade in, and 5 years from now, people are gonna be like, you know what? It's not that good. It's very toxic, and I don't need to be yelled at, and I don't want this person, in my life or whatever. And I wonder if we will see a reduction of that in another 10 years. I sure hope so.
Yeah, well, I mean, just looking back to see, like 2012, I mean, Instagram was like brand new. Yeah, so I mean, just imagining what it's going to be in 10 years is kind of crazy to think.
Or it could go, I could be wrong, and it could end up being the end all and be all, and we're all addicted to it ever more than ever, and Facebook is richer than ever. And it's unfortunate if that happens. But I mean, just going off, I've lost a lot of followers on Twitter. I think just Twitter itself seems to not be as popular as it once was in my little sphere of motocross people and friends. Let's hope it keeps that way.
Right. Yeah, and it seems like when one platform starts to dip, another one like TikTok comes out, and that's like,
Hmm. Yeah,
all the rage these days. So who knows what the
sure.
next few things are going to look like? But
Yeah, it's not good though. It's not a good thing for society. It has some good features and good moments, and it helps things work really well at times, but overall it has been a detriment to society.
I just think it's a shame that so much of work, especially for independent professionals, it relies on social media, and you have to get tied into
Hmm.
the this swirl of stuff on social media in order to promote yourself and be
Well,
successful.
there's a couple of teams out there that have energy drink sponsors in our sport that the riders are required to have social media accounts, and they are required to post, I think, 3 times a month with the sponsors and the drink tagged in it. And some of these guys are just like, I don't want to do that. I don't, they agree to it. They have to do it, but they don't want to, and it's required. And I just wonder, like, hold on a second. Is that a smart thing to do, to require someone who doesn't have interest in it, doesn't care about it, hates it, for lack of a better term, to post on social media? I don't get that part of it at all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I wonder because I imagine those sorts of contracts are also relatively new. So I wonder how,
Hmm.
if enough athletes are pushing back against it, they'll maybe explore other avenues. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't you want someone to talk about your drink and your race team because they want to, not because they're contracted to, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, you'd hope so, right? Just to bring it back to distracted driving a little bit, Steve, have you had any close calls or personal connection to someone who's been affected by distracted driving?
um, Nothing that I can think of. Close calls, yes. I have a safety system on my truck that I drive that brakes for me, right? If it kind of feels like it. And I've had it come up a couple times in traffic. I've been distracted on my phone, and then the truck has braked for me. I've not been in an accident in knock on wood, uh, uh, 15, 20 years. Um, I haven't had anybody affected by it as far as that goes, but I've certainly, there was a something on the news a little while ago north of Vegas here that they think someone was texting and they went into another lane and had a head on, right? Terrible. So knock on wood, I've had a couple close calls, and I honestly, I try to do better. I try to leave my phone alone, and I try to say, I can get to that later. Am I always successful? No, I'm human, just like everybody. But certainly recognize the dangers of it.
Right. Well, I appreciate you being open with your experience, and I think we all have experiences where we're distracted in one form or another.
Absolutely,
As you
yeah,
said, we're humans, and I appreciate you also being open to doing the driving focus and putting that on your phone. Can I
yeah. Let's
get
try
you
that.
to
Yeah,
Can I get you to promise to drive distraction free?
I'm gonna try to promise to drive distraction free. Yeah, I will. I will try. It's a daily battle, right? But I think that first step, putting on my phone, that's a good thing because I honestly didn't know how it worked. I've gotten the text back from people, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and now I know.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, Steve. And the goal is to have the awareness factor increased in everyone and just being aware of your phone
Hmm.
use. And it's so easy to just kind of be passive while you're driving and pick up your phone. And, just
Hmm.
like all the hundreds of other times that you've been okay and nothing's happened, to just do
Yep.
that. But it only takes one time where the variables are lined up in a way where someone's in front of you stopped or a pedestrian or something and you're not looking, and that changes their life and your life forever. And just having the awareness, knowing that that's a real risk that you've just been lucky to have avoided so far.
Hmm.
Just having that awareness, it will go a long way. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you talking about it.
No, for sure. I think we can all be better at it, and we all need to get better at it. And maybe this will help somebody think about it a little bit more. And you're right, lives can be affected in a split second, and either way, you know.
Right. Well, Steve, just to wrap up here, because I know the meeting's going to kick us out in a couple minutes. But what are some things in your life and career that you're looking forward to in the next chunk of time?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, the sport's been really fun to cover. I have a great job. It's frustrating at times, but in the end of the day, I have a great job. I make a good living, and it's super fortunate to cover this sport that I grew up with. Like I said, I've been a fan of this racing since I was 7, 8 years old, right? And now I get to watch at the very highest levels. So I'm looking forward to continuing to do that and continuing to grow my listenership and everything else that we're doing. And like I said, man, it could be a lot worse of things that I do for a living than watch a bunch of motocross racing. So I'm blessed that way.
What would you say is one thing about your work or life that makes you the happiest? Like when are you the happiest?
I'm happiest at just kind of looking at what I've accomplished in the life and covering the sport, and also just kind of looking at like my wife and I's life, and we're really happy, and we have a nice house, and we spend time together, and that's all because sort of being independent business guy and and forging my own path at some point in the media game, and it's worked. So I'm really proud of that. And I'm when I sit back and look at it, and I'm out on a mountain bike at 9 a.m. instead of, in a cubicle in an office, I'm a pretty lucky guy.
Yeah, it sounds like not too bad of a gig. And
Yeah,
you get to go to Paris
absolutely.
next week. That should be a blast.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly. I've been I think this is my 17th year in a row of going. So, yeah, I'm fortunate. I have somebody to pay my costs to go to Paris, France.
Well, just to wrap up here, Steve, any closing thoughts or anything that you'd like to share?
No, just I need to get better at distracted driving. Like I said, my wife this morning was like, "Oh, you need to be better," because she's gotten on me before about it. She's really good at it. Like, she doesn't touch her phone, which actually pisses me off sometimes because she won't reply. Um, so she's really good at it, and I need to be better. I'm trying, and so thanks for the reminders.
Yeah, of course. And as long as you're making the effort, it's going to move us in the right direction. So
For sure.
every step helps. Well, thank you for the time. Sorry we didn't get to meet in person, but safe travels to California tomorrow, Steve. And I'll keep you
Yeah,
posted on this video and everything.
yeah. Let me know. I'll promote it and talk about it. So no problem. Thanks, man.
Cool. Thank you so much. Well, have a good rest of your day. All right.
All right, you too, man. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks.
See ya.
Well, you made it to the end of the episode. Thanks so much for listening to my conversation with Steve. Hope you enjoyed it. Another great perspective on distracted driving. I really appreciate how open Steve is about his own habits and how he can improve on distracted driving and distractions in his own life, because we all can improve, myself included. I found myself having a hard time with my own phone use, especially in the winter when it's harder to get outside in the cold weather here in New England. So it's all things that we can work on, and that's part of the beauty of the Eyes Up mission. It's not to become perfect overnight. It's to raise awareness for our own habits and build healthier relationships over time, one step at a time, and to pursue what you really like to do. So these sorts of things are really exciting for me, and I get a lot of joy and energy from speaking to people like Steve. So if you enjoyed what you heard, stay tuned. Subscribe to Eyes Up Life on your podcast app. Follow Eyes Up Ride on Instagram. And follow Maxxis Tires on Instagram as well. All of the videos will be posted there in addition to my own account. So thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a great 2 weeks, and we'll see you for the next one, which will be, stay tuned for the next episode, which will be in 2 weeks from whenever this was released. Take care. See you next time. Well, I won't see you next time, but I'll speak to you next time. Bye-bye.